Welcome to Issued for Construction. I'm your host, Jonathan Jacobs. And today leads off a series of 4 interviews, discussions, whatever we want to call them, here in New York City. And the excitement for today is that I've got 2 individuals sitting across from me, partners of a practice that are really well established here in New York. They do beautiful work. I was introduced to them through their lovely PR person, Elizabeth, who I have to say thank you to. So today I've got across from me Adam Yarinsky, Kim Yao, and Stephen Cassell sitting in between the 2 of them, but not really sitting here because Stephen's away. So he's going to be quiet today.
Exactly. We will include Stephen in the conversation in a variety of ways.
Stephen, we're sorry you couldn't be here.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
But don't worry, they'll fill in the gaps.
Yep.
Before Kim starts telling us about Portland, I want to talk to you about a new partner, American Express. You just heard me mention that this is the first of 4 interviews I flew into New York City to record for this trip. Travel like that has to be productive. It can't be dead time. When I was setting up my businesses, I did the deep dive you'd expect from someone who runs a podcast for the AEC industry. Over-researched, cross-referenced, pushed through every single angle. I leaned on AI to do it. And for anyone opposed to using AI, reach out. Happy to have that conversation because when it's used well, it's a serious tool. I ran the comparison across Claude, Gemini, and GPT, weighing every card against the benefits I actually needed as a business owner. It landed me on Amex card built around lounge access. That's what sold me, but there's a lot more. But it's the lounges. Let me tell you, the lounges. Flying out of Toronto, I sat in a lounge and worked through a couple of proposals, prepped social posts, ate, had coffee, and moved into work mode before I ever boarded the plane. Offline document open on the flight. And when I landed at LaGuardia, well, there's a lounge there too. The whole trip became productive time instead of dead time. Coincidentally, Adam and Kim and Steven carry an Amex card for their business as well. Good company to be in. If you'd like to learn more about the Amex partnership program I'm a part of, email me directly. It's jonathan@issuedforconstruction.ca. One more thing worth sitting with. Later in this episode, Adam describes realizing that a practice isn't a finish line, it's a continuum. Weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly. He calls that cadence the thing you actually want. That mindset changes how you use the small windows of your week, travel included. If that landed, leave the show 5 stars in the podcast app and follow it Issued for Construction on Instagram. Now, let's get back to Adam and Kim. So the basics of today, we're gonna go through Adam's story. We're gonna go through Kim's story. We're gonna talk about the evolution of the practice, and we'll get started. I'll start today with ladies first. So,
Please.
Wow. Okay.
So Kim,
Yes.
tell me, where were you born? What was life like growing up? What did your parents do? Did you have siblings? A couple of those little like early snippets of life.
Family picture.
Can you summarize, 30 plus years of life in
Very
the
generous
next
of you.
10 minutes?
50 plus years of life. I was born in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
So I'm a native Oregonian. I love the Northwest. I'm the youngest of 3 children. I was the 3rd accidental surprise baby.
Yeah.
I like to own that in my family. It's great. And I'm half Chinese, and my mom is sort of American Irish, like
American Irish.
or like she's of Irish descent, but Caucasian. And my dad immigrated. He was Chinese, but he was born in the Philippines, and he immigrated to Pittsburgh, and they met in Pittsburgh.
How did they meet?
My dad was a pediatric neurologist.
Okay.
And so he moved to the country to do his residency at like Pittsburgh Children's Hospital, I think. And my mom was a nurse. So they met like in the hospital.
Professionally, that's
yeah,
amazing.
Exactly. Maybe you don't do that anymore. I don't know. But
whatever.
Got married, which was like less common then than it is now. And so they moved around a little bit. My dad ended up getting drafted into the Vietnam War as part of his like citizenship, which is not supposed to happen, but got his citizenship, was drafted, but served, at the Presidio in San Francisco. He didn't go to Vietnam. He served as a doctor.
I was going to say,
doctors.
They're utilizing those skills, not putting them on the front line.
Yeah, I guess. So they moved. My mom was from Pennsylvania, but they moved to the West Coast and stayed pretty much on the West Coast, although I'm the only kid of the three who was born in Portland, but they lived there most of their professional lives.
And do they still live there?
My father passed away like 17 years ago, almost 18 years ago, but my mother just moved out here to north of New York like a few years ago.
Okay.
Which is great. And so she's closer to her roots and closer to us. And we gave up, sold the house, got rid of all the stuff.
It's hard, right?
Oh my God, there's so much stuff. My parents also collected a lot of different things, like kind of Americana, like American kind of rustic antiques, glass candy containers. They quilted together. They did all kinds of stuff together. And the house was very full of things. So that was kind of a big process to get out of the house, but it was great. And everyone's very happy. Nobody lives in Oregon anymore, although I love going back to Oregon. But my sister lives in Southern California. My brother lives in London. And so we're kind of all over, which is also why being in New York is so great, because like my mom and I are now kind of in the middle, which is good.
When you said London, I'm from Toronto, Canada. So I'm assuming you meant London, Ontario.
Yeah, definitely not. But good guess. Like he could have ended up in Canada. We love Canada, no, he's in England, which is great. He also still has a place in San Francisco, so he comes back and forth. But it was great. Portland, like in Oregon, I think is one of the most beautiful places. I mean, there are a lot of beautiful places in Canada, but it's beautiful state.
Yes.
I love the Pacific Ocean. It's great.
So what was it like growing up for you? Like what were your interests? Was it hiking? Were you into the outdoors?
I know.
Were you inside? Were you artsy? Were you scientific?
More artsy, not hiking. Although I like hiking now. I never camped growing up.
Okay.
I can barely ride a bike. Although I'm more outdoorsy now than I was as a kid, but my parents weren't very outdoorsy. So when all the other Oregon families were going to Hawaii for holiday, we were coming to the East Coast for holidays. So I think that being in cities, I grew up right outside of Portland on the southwest side on the Willamette River in a town called Lake Oswego, which had two rival high schools, the older side of the town and the newer side of the town. But the lake was a man-made lake that was built originally as kind of a resort weekend community for the city proper. So people had their weekend houses there. I think of course that's not that was before our time, but it was a great town to grow up in, and it was a 10-minute drive into downtown. So I like going into the city a lot. As a kid, I'm a soccer player. I was a soccer player, and now I'm a soccer mom. So everyone gets tired of me hearing about soccer. So I played soccer. And I played basketball. And
what position did you play in both?
I was a winger in soccer and a center in basketball.
Okay.
For
those wondering, Kim's 6'5".
Yeah. No, I'm not short, but I'm not that tall.
She has very tall kids.
I'm 5'8", and my son is 6'2" and 17, and my daughter is 5'11". So they are, which is great.
They're tall.
But they're not 6'5" or 7 feet.
But you were playing center basketball?
Yeah, but I only in high school.
Okay, still.
When I got to college, I rowed for a year, novice, and that was really fun because it's just so beautiful to be on the water, and it's a great team sport, but it's really hard work. And then I discovered architecture. So I was a little bit of an athlete. I really liked music and I really liked art. So
did you play music as well?
I play the piano.
Okay.
But I wasn't cool. I wasn't in a band or anything.
I was going to say, I like the way you said it. It's kind of I just kind of downplay. I play piano.
But yeah, I know. I love playing piano, but I didn't practice enough.
Yeah, that's
which is the problem.
Yeah.
And I guess I played clarinet too, but badly. That was in school band. Piano I did as a thing. And
a lot of people have trouble with the reed.
Yeah, that was okay actually. Okay. But I only did that in school. I didn't I didn't really play clarinet on the side on my own.
Did you ever grow up playing the game Operation based on your dad?
Oh, definitely. Although, but we played a lot of games.
Okay.
And they were, it was great. I mean, growing up there was really, it's a really awesome place. Portland's a small city. I mean, it's gone through a lot of change, but it's it's really green, you know, so it's like a small city. So it's kind of a safe place to feel like you can go out and be in as a teenager and not, you know, feel, it's kind of like easy to get in and out of, has a nice coherent downtown, it's a great waterfront. And then you go from, the city to the coast, you go through like wine country, you go through the mountains and you get to the beach. And I just think the beach, but really the West Coast beach, I mean, the East Coast beach is really pretty too, but I love the West Coast beach. And the beaches are really like in Oregon, it's like stormy and cold and except like in August. So it's very kind of, mysterious and beautiful.
Question for you, now living on the East Coast, which fish is better?
Oh, like you mean
when you're eating fish, do you like the fish that's coming out of Atlantic or the Pacific? I
mean, I have a soft spot for like wild salmon from the Northwest, but I actually like fish. I'm like agnostic about fish. I am not agnostic about crab. I think Dungeness crab is by far better than blue crab if we want to have like a crab debate.
I mean, we're doing it. Let's go.
And so blue crab, I mean, Dungeness crab is like big, beautiful. And we used to go crabbing when I was a kid. So we didn't hike, but we would go out and go crabbing.
Go crabbing?
Like at the beach and drop pots and stuff. And you get and then my dad would make a fire on the beach and we'd like cook the crab on the beach. So great. Yeah, it was really great. But now
if I didn't ask that question, that little story would have never come to fruition.
Yeah. Now if
amazing.
Like when I do that now as an adult and I take my kids back, we still like to go to Oregon. And if we go crabbing, we're way too lazy to do that. We have the guys like cook it on the beach, on the dock. We still catch the crab.
Oh, hold on, you've leveled up.
Yeah. Right, exactly. We've gone somewhere. Exactly. It's not quite as like, it's not as much of a day experience, but it's great. And so crabbing, I do like Pacific seafood, but there's a lot of great seafood to be had in the world. So, so it's great. So I didn't discover architecture. We'll hear the difference between our two histories here, but I liked cities. And I was really interested in art, and I did a lot of visual arts in high school. Okay. So much so that my parents were like, please don't go to art school. Like, if you go to college, you can go to art school after college. And I was like, what are you talking about? Of course I'm going to go to college. I didn't have my sights set on art school, but they were like very anxious about it. And
You're talking about two professionals.
Well, my sister is
a creative concept is
although it's
scary.
Funny, like my dad did a lot of refinishing of furniture and he used to paint.
But those were hobbies.
Yeah, they were hobbies.
That wasn't the profession.
No, right. My sister is a doctor and my brother is a lawyer and I'm the architect. So like, yes, there's definitely a professional bent, but I discovered architecture when I got to college. So that was kind of like, we all came to the East Coast for college. Yeah. And I went to Columbia for undergrad. So I came to New York. My brother was at law school at Columbia, and he was like, you're really going to like being in New York. And I'd visited New York before, and I was like, yes, New York is great, and I love the campus. It's great architecture on that campus. And so we overlapped for 1 year when I started, and Columbia has a really strict core curriculum, so you really don't take electives until you're in your first electives kind of occur in your second year of college. Okay. And so I was taking like humanities courses and everything, rowing my first year. And then my second year, this is a ridiculous story, but I'm just going to tell you.
That's why I'm here.
So I was like, I've taken French my whole life. Wouldn't it be cool to take Italian? And so I thought for my elective, I would try taking like an Italian class. I didn't realize that Italian was like, for whatever reason, the most popular like foreign language to get into. So I went to this class and I couldn't get into the Italian class because it was like oversubscribed, which right now seems kind of ridiculous to me. But at the time, I guess that's what was going on. So I was talking to this woman who was like, you should take like, maybe you should take, I'm taking an architecture course and it's kind of interesting. She was like a year older. I think she was also a rower. And I said, I don't know. I think it would be really fun to do another studio art class because I haven't been able to do any art classes since I've been in college. But don't you need to know a lot of math to be good at architecture? And she's like, no, you don't need to know any math. And I was like, okay. Because I had also decided when I finished calculus in I never took math in college. I was like, I hate it. I loved math until I got to like AP Calc or whatever. And I was like, this sucks. So I did two things that semester, which changed my life. I took an intro to architecture course that Scott Marble of Marble Fairbanks taught. He was my first design critic professor. And I also took an architectural history course that Barry Berke taught. He had 2 courses he taught back-to-back, or not back-to-back, but you could take them in succession.
Yeah.
Both amazing, professors. And so I was simultaneously having my first architecture studio and having my first architectural history course. And I kind of like fell in love with it, like the whole thing.
Amazing.
Yeah. So that's the short version.
Okay. And I'm just going to absorb that for a second.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a lot of detail. Sorry.
No. It's
we could go backwards or forwards, whatever you would like to.
No. Where we are is good.
Yeah, okay.
Where we are is good. To be honest, what I find really interesting about this is I've spoken to so many people now is when you can actually determine that this is a course of life that you're going to go down.
Yes.
Some people have it happen at a really, really young age.
Yes.
And some people discover it much later.
Yeah.
And almost like it was an unknown profession that you could go and you could design the world that we live in.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen until you're like, could be in your teens or 20s.
Right. I mean, the fact that people, and Adam will share his life story, but I think that I didn't know any architects growing up, right? And I think we do a lot as practitioners and people now to try to bridge that gap more with younger generations, like through other kinds of service and things that we might do or organizations that we're involved with. But I didn't know any architects growing up, but I did really love being in buildings. And I realize that now. And I loved exploring buildings of all different kinds. And I also liked exploring, when you walk through houses under construction, things like that you're or there were these amazing old forts on the West Coast from these concrete forts from military activity that you used to be able to go through unattended. I'm sure you can't do that anymore. And they were really cool. So lots of different kinds of spaces that I think were very impactful for me that I realize now in hindsight was probably a clue, but
they were just these small little seeds over the course of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to contribute to what you've been saying. So I years ago in 2020 lost my father.
Okay. Yeah.
And my dad was a big proponent of the process of construction. He loved it. He was a lawyer.
Oh, great. But this was his passion.
He loved construction.
Yeah.
So growing up, my dad would whenever he could, he would try to find some kind of a rental property and make it a fixer-upper.
Oh, fantastic.
And so I was always going with him to these, you'd put a ball down on the ground in these old buildings in Toronto.
See where it goes.
And we just watch the ball just move all over the place. and he's like, we're going to try to fix it. And so now traveling and doing this and talking to people that are designing the built world is one of those things I wish you could see. Yeah. But you're doing it. Yeah. And you're honoring the fact that you did do what they said. You went to school.
Yeah.
And you started design after you got into it.
Exactly. Yeah. There was definitely a moment where it's like, oh, architecture. He was like, that could be a hard life. Are you sure? Are you sure that's what you want to do? And I was like, it's great. And they were very, very supportive. I had very supportive parents and a very fortunate and supportive family. But it's
so I'll come back to the beginning of your professional career after we go through Adam. You're lead up through
absolutely
university. So
hit
it. Before Adam gets going, I want to talk to you about a company called The Doors. Because something Kim said earlier stuck with me. She talked about being drawn to buildings from a young age, walking through houses under construction, exploring old concrete forts on the West Coast, being curious about spaces long before she knew what architecture was. Every one of those buildings had a threshold, a door you walk through. That's where today's partner comes in. The Doors is a Toronto-based husband and wife company. Martin and Marta have been servicing clients across North America and into the Caribbean and the Bahamas for 20 years. Their clients range from homeowners to builders and architects to designers, and their aim is to be the single point of contact for anything to do with exterior windows and doors. And what sets them apart is the relationship. Martin and Marta know that if you treat this business as transactional, you don't really have a business. You have an empty expiry date. They treat every client as someone they want to be connected to for the long haul, and that shows up in the work. The range is wide, curtain walls, expansive glass at 20 feet tall or 20 feet wide. Wall to roof line assemblies, corner windows, vinyl, fiberglass, wood, aluminum wood clad, and steel. Low profile casements with high R values. Triple glazing for passive house projects. Residential, multi-res, and mid-rise, and commercial work like storefronts, restaurants, and galleries. It's a one-stop shop. No cost for additional revisions to shop drawings, and they own their own equipment, including a spider crane for challenging installs, so they're not held up by rentals. One more thing worth sitting with. Coming up later in this episode, Kim tells the story of walking into ARO as a 2-week temporary hire and ending up as the third partner of the firm. Sometimes the relationships that define a career start with a favor. Martin and Marta build their businesses on the same principle. And if that landed, leave the show a 5-star review on your podcast app. Follow along on Instagram. It's Issued for Construction. If you want to connect with them or any other sponsors, email me. It's Jonathan, JONATHAN at issuedforconstruction.ca. Everything on the door is in the liner notes, or again, as I say, email me. Now, let's get back to Adam.
As a baby.
I am already having a pleasure with this discussion because Kim and I have worked together for almost 30 years, but I've already learned a whole bunch of things that I didn't know.
You didn't know that? I thought
this is why it's called therapy.
Well, I think I knew this, but I hadn't internalized that Kim is the youngest of 3, and I am also the youngest of 3.
Yeah.
So
Stephen is also the youngest of 2.
Yep, exactly.
So we're all babies.
See, Stephen? So you're still getting words in.
Exactly. But so yeah, and I am, as Kim alluded to, I was interested in architecture at a very early age. So when I was like 5 or 6 years old.
How did you know that?
That is because we had a family friend and who was an architect. So my parents grew up in New York City. I grew up in upstate New York, a suburb of Albany. But one of the people they knew when they were before they had children and then afterwards was an architect in the city. He worked for Marcel Breuer initially, and then he had his own firm in New York City. So we would go visit their weekend place in the woods of Connecticut like once a year, and he had designed it. It was a kind of binuclear house, very low budget, but very minimally and sort of beautifully done. And so I was, from a very early age, 4 or 5 years old, kind of seeing this kind of white box in the woods and sort of, that's unusual. And then I remember they had an old 1960s like Mercedes wagon that was kind of this cool looking thing that, I doubt very many of them survive to this day, but it was cool.
Like a 250 or 300.
Yeah.
But it was beautiful.
Yeah. But so anyway, that was intriguing and I was trying to process that. And then when I was in elementary school, there was a publication at our elementary school called Ink Spots, which was the school newspaper, which was printed back then in a mimeograph machine, which I don't know if anyone will know what that was, but it was basically this kind of crank operated thing that would print, small batches.
And did you have to control the speed at which you moved it to be able?
I don't know, because we didn't actually do the printing. We were like little kids.
Okay.
But so I wrote a poem or a little narrative called "I Am an Architect." when I was 5 or 6 years old in first grade.
Can you recite that for us? Do you
no, but it was what's funny. I have a printout of it, and it was funny because on the same page, other kids are writing like stories about animals and hippopotamus and things, and I'm like, I'm an architect, and I described the process of making a building and whatnot. So. A week or so later, the parent of one of my classmates, who was an architect who had his own firm in Albany, sent me a letter saying, "I very much enjoyed your recent words in Ink Spots, and please consider this a firm job offer. Work to commence 1985."
So you're telling me that you're like the Lewis Hamilton?
So this
architecture.
This is
better.
This is 1969.
Yeah.
He writes me this letter. I'm in first grade. He writes me this letter, and then I ended up interning in his office in the early 80s when I was in architecture school. Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't
you
that
guys
awesome?
stayed in touch the entire time?
He became a mentor, somebody who, he passed away probably 10 years ago. He was in his 90s then, but
And
so
what type of architecture did his practice do?
they did new buildings. They did, interestingly, relative to our work, one of the things he told me was how much he valued the relationships he had with his nonprofit and cultural clients. Yeah. They did historic preservation. They did some new construction. And I worked for 3 summers when I was in undergraduate school for his office.
I mean, it's unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so a lovely guy. And also, but then thereafter, after I got that letter with the job offer, which, I still have a copy of that, a copy of it. I then went to his office a few times and shared photos of stuff that I was doing, or, brought a model here. And he sent me another letter commenting to me about scale in a model. Cause I think the model I built was maybe, had some weird proportions, or the scale was. I was probably like in 2nd or 3rd grade, things like that. So anyway, we stayed in touch.
And you were in the 2nd or 3rd grade, willing to accept the criticism of someone else.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't. It was very gently delivered, but
still,
he said, he was describing the concept of scale. Like in one letter, he describes.
And did you understand what he was saying?
How they work, and I don't remember whether I understood it or not. But the thing was, what I also did. My dad was a research scientist, so he passed away in 2013, but he was a very serious amateur photographer, black and white, did street photography.
Did he process his own film?
Yes. So we had a dark room in the house.
I love it.
And my mom was trained as a fine artist. She's still alive. She's 94. But so they both had studios in our basement of our suburban house.
Hold on. I just got to say, God bless your mom.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, she's still doing great. Just saw her on Mother's Day last Sunday. So she's
raised him right.
Great. Yeah.
Listen, you
absolutely. But so they both had their studios there, and I would go down to the basement and I would build things out of these play school blocks. There were these pine blocks, very simple.
I had
they
play
still
school
make
blocks
them. Yeah.
too. I loved those.
So did I.
Yeah, and
they're the best.
I was perfectly happy to spend hours just doing
100%.
that down in the basement. Weather was not always great, in upstate New York, long winters. And then as I got older, I sort of migrated to model railroading. So I did that, where I was making dioramas and things. And we had a big woods behind our house. We were in a older subdivision. So all the property wasn't developed around us. So I would also spend a lot of time outside in the woods and doing things like that. So yeah, but and then I went to RPI, which is in Troy, New York.
There's a question I had about
Yeah, please.
Did you ever build a treehouse?
No, but I did build forts and dams and things, like
ground.
Actually, interestingly, kind of without knowing it, because it's very intuitive when you're in the woods and you have branches, kind of, structures like the kind of huts and things where you're putting the sticks together and forming.
Did you ever grab mud and start?
No, didn't go that far.
I gotta ask.
Yes.
You didn't have any rammed earth experiments?
No, really rammed earth. But I was building sustainably at a very early age with using only timber.
You
elements.
invented sustainability.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. But,
you invented the sustainable
and then you brought
architecture.
You got to come see what I built.
Yeah. Totally. So anyway, my grandparents, as I said, or my parents grew up in New York City. So my grandparents lived in Brooklyn. We would come down to New York City several times a year. So going to like the Guggenheim, the Met Museum, International Center of Photography, we would always go to. And so I got introduced to, museums. I'm sure I was bored most of the time and it was too much, but as a family, we would go, to museums and things, into the city regularly. And also State University of New York and Albany had a really good art gallery. My parents knew people who were there. So I remember going to openings and shows there, as well as the State Museum in Albany, stuff like that.
Was there a specific typology that you liked in when you were seeing these galleries? Was it?
No.
Okay.
I mean, my block constructions were by and large, I would say, modernist. We have a whole bunch of little black and white photographs of them, and including one of me like wearing a little blazer with like a pointer pointing to something.
I mean, if you have this stuff, I gotta ask. Because I have some people that when they find this stuff, they'll send it over and put it up on the stories. The feature.
No, I can send you this.
You have when the time comes, I'll email you about that. Okay, amazing.
But
so you got to check stories when you're listening to this. Follow the stories this week. You'll see some of these
Yep.
These classics.
No, and some of the structures are cool. Like, I mean, I should actually, if I were smart, I would go back and mine them for potential ideas.
Yes.
But because there's some there that, just they sort of have hierarchy, they have repetition, they have, they're all the things that you think about when you're, and those blocks were so great to work with because they had a kind of pre-given set of proportions and relationships between the sizes and things like that.
And the black and white photos drain all the color out of the blocks.
Yes.
My blocks were some were colored.
Oh, really? No, mine were all the pine, natural pine.
I had ones that were the pine ones, but they were like red, blue, green, yellow. They were it must have been like a
And then you had the kind that had the arch.
It had the arch.
The arch taken out of it.
A little
circular.
and a cylinder. Yeah, but mine weren't all pine. Sorry. So I was making.
So I remember trying to build like cantilevers.
Yes.
Portions with the arch, where the arch was like the cantilevered section, and you'd have to work on building up enough weight above it to be able to support the cantilever.
Yes. But I have to say, I'll make a reference to Canada here because you're from Canada.
Let's do it
to honor our host. When I was in 7th grade, we did a family vacation to Toronto. We camped out at a campground that was sort of northeast of the city on Lake Ontario. Yeah. We would come into the city, and one of the buildings I really remember from that trip was the City Hall, which is still one of my favorite buildings.
The new City Hall or the old City Hall?
The City Hall from the 1960s in Toronto.
Yeah, so the one
with the two curving. So there's a newer one than that?
No.
Oh, that's the new one. Yeah.
So old City Hall's right behind it, and right now it's actually an empty building.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, wow.
In it, and there's this talk about the revitalization of it. And so there's people working on that now.
And the other side story to that was, so we were touring around the city, but right before we went on our camping trip, I cut myself in our house. I fell and cut my hand, and I didn't get stitches, but then after we'd been in Canada for a few days, it wasn't really healing. So we went into the city, and we were going to City Hall to ask, like, where do you go to get, a hospital? So as we're walking up to City Hall, this gentleman, kind of well-dressed guy says, "Oh, what are you looking for?" And we're looking for a place for, so he took us to the sick kids hospital, which I think was right near there.
Yep.
And it turned out this guy was like a judge, like a city or a regional judge who just took 20-minute detour from his day, took us there. I got stitches there, and it cost like $5 at the time or something. It was like, thank you, socialized medicine.
You're out ahead.
Yeah.
With the exchange, that cost you like a quarter.
Exactly. So anyway, I think the follow-up visit when we got back home was, 7 times more expensive to get the stitches taken out.
And not nearly as pleasurable memorable.
But anyway, we had met this guy right in front of City Hall, I remember. Yeah.
Without belaboring any form of subject about Toronto, but Toronto is a really, really interesting city in that way. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people there now that are in the architecture scene that are trying to figure out what is Toronto going to look like right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of influence coming in from other parts of the world to the city.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Getting territorial. No, I'm kidding.
Local architects are feeling
I'm sure
they're being pressed.
Yeah.
Because they're not winning as much. Anyhow, I digress. So
so anyway, the other piece that resonated with me from what Kim was saying was calculus was my Waterloo. I did 1 year of calculus in undergrad that nearly killed me, but thank God the TA, I had office hours because I was camped out there every week for my remedial assistance. But yeah, so anyway, I went to architecture school undergraduate. I was with the University of Virginia. I was accepted into the architecture school. And part of the reason that was attractive was there was an easy transfer out. If somehow I decided I didn't want to be an architect, I could go to the College of Arts and Sciences and without having to reapply.
As if that was going to be the case with all this history going on.
I know.
So anyway, it turned out, everything turned out fine. But
if I got a trading card for you at 5, I'm like, that's not going to deviate. He's not deviating.
It's a little embarrassing, I guess, in some respects.
No, it's awesome.
Not at all.
Not, but
I think personally, I think it's amazing for someone to know what they wanted to do that early on. I mean, that means that when a client's meeting with you, they're getting you.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. And what's been exciting in our path, working together, but also just in architecture since we've been born, is the way in which the possibilities within the profession have expanded. So even beyond what I was introduced to, I mean, there's so many interesting opportunities and ways to contribute to the built environment, whether you're in architecture or affiliated professions and things. So anyway, it still excites me, to be involved in this work that we do.
Yeah. Before we move into Kim and Adam's early careers, I want to tell you about Kaplan's Appliances because something Kim shared earlier really stayed with me. She talked about growing up in Oregon and going crabbing with her family at the coast and her dad building a fire on the beach to cook Dungeness crab. Imagine that. Fresh, right out the water. Cooking as the thing that gathered the people she loved. That's what today's partner is built on. I was talking with Rob, the owner of Kaplan's, last week, and one of the things we always end up talking about is travel. Rob loves New York. He even said he could live there for a couple months a year. Well, I question that, but for the range of restaurants and the museums, the walkability, the way you can plant yourself in one neighborhood and just experience it on the foot for days. What he really loves is the idea of a neighborhood staple, a place that becomes a part of the fabric of where people live. And that's what Kaplan's is for Toronto. As an appliance retailer, Rob knows the challenge is the differentiation. And the way Kaplan's differentiates itself is philosophical. They don't see the delivery and the installation as the end of the relationship. That's where the point of sale ends, but it's the beginning of the relationship. Their job is to service clients through the entire life of ownership, so that when the next appliance dies and they're ready for the new one, or the next property gets built, the family comes back. Generations come back. That's how Kaplan's becomes a household name. You don't get there by focusing on the sale. You get there by focusing on the service and the craft of communication. And that's what Rob pushes his team to do every day. One more thing worth sitting with. Coming up later in this episode, Kim calls cooking her happy place. Meditative and productive. That's not a small thing. The kitchen you cook in shapes the moments you build a life around. Rob's team at Kaplan's takes that seriously on every single job. If that landed, leave the show 5 stars on your podcast app and follow us on Instagram. It's Issued for Construction. Same logos you're looking at now. Everything on Kaplan's is in the liner notes. You can email them direct. You can email me and I can introduce you to Janine, who runs the partner relationships. My email address is Jonathan, Jonathan, at issuedforconstruction.ca. Now, let's get back to the early careers of Adam and Kim. Okay, so school is now complete. We're both aligned.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's talk about stage from school to ARO.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh, I should probably say one thing.
Please.
Sorry, just a small backward digression was when I was in grad school, a formative experience for me. I went to Princeton. We both went to Princeton.
We did not overlap.
Not overlap. But I got the SOM Prize, which was a fellowship that they still offer, but I think the terms are slightly different. But basically, I traveled for 9 months researching a topic that I had proposed, and
Which was
called The Single Building as Urban Intervention, which is kind of a wordy title, but basically it was looking at civic, public, cultural buildings in their contexts, primarily in Western Europe, and how they were both the kind of reciprocity that these buildings had with their local context, but also kind of larger cultural context of the city. So one of the buildings I looked at was Aspelund's public library in Stockholm, for instance. Some of them were older, but that was early modern example. Anyway, that was formative for me just because it was a way of expanding my sense of what the possibilities were beyond my education, and also in a way seeing very directly how buildings interact with their physical and social contexts.
Right.
That is beyond and outside of what we as architects prescribe or envision, and especially when you're looking at buildings that have been parts of sites for decades or if not centuries.
right. Well,
And how they change over time.
and also being away and seeing
Yes.
that in Europe and how it impacts and the change in the way that the cultures are there comparatively to here.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Is likely very eye-opening.
Yeah. So that in a way was important for me just personally, because it felt as if I was looking at architecture from a different perspective than my training had focused on, which was primarily, the architect as kind of form giver, which we are, but also as sort of someone who is apart from the process, apart from maybe sometimes the people who use and experience our buildings. So anyway.
And you see that the apartness being a positive.
No, I think that was, I think it limits in a way the sense of possibilities that you can have when versus, let's say you're more actively collaborating with people and listening to, the people that you're working with and learning from them. But anyway, so.
Got it.
One of the other things that was worth noting was that you did mention that your grandparents had a place in Brooklyn.
My grandparents lived in Brooklyn.
Right.
They were immigrants from Eastern Europe. And so interestingly, my mother's mother passed away when she was a teenager. So I never knew her, but my mother's father was a building contractor in Brooklyn in New York City. Not too far from where we are now.
Which is what I was going to go to.
Yes.
We are in Brooklyn.
Yes.
And
that's
pretty
right.
Circular as well.
Yes, it is. And then my father's father was a shoemaker.
Shoemaker?
Yes, yes. So he was trained in working leather, and he worked for a company called I. Miller, which was a well-known women's shoe company that no longer exists, but he made prototypes and he worked out of their offices in Midtown Manhattan, but he lived in Brooklyn.
If anyone's never seen a video of a shoemaker putting together a custom shoe, press pause on the episode for a second and watch like a 30-second clip of a shoemaker putting together a shoe.
Yeah.
It is fascinating to watch, and the craftsmanship associated with that is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was cool. But oddly enough, just given the times and my age, I didn't really interact a lot with my grandfathers around their professions, really. Of course, in hindsight, there's so many things I would have loved to talk to my grandfather about contracting and things. And I have all of his records that my mom's given me.
You're getting a sense of who the record keeper is in the room.
So it's neat. It's
but
neat.
It's good. It's very good.
And
Kim, you didn't know what you wanted to do when you were 5.
No, but I don't have any records.
That's why you have partners, okay?
I know.
Partners help tie in the things that we can't do.
That's right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. So anyway, I definitely grew up, encouraged to look at architecture as a possible profession. Yeah.
I think it's amazing. It's what's kind of circuitous as well. I studied broadcast and print journalism in university.
Interesting.
And I had always had an interest in it. My mom actually hosted a show in Toronto when she was young, before she had kids. And my mom was offered, I don't even know why I'm telling the story, but here I am telling the story. She just reminded me of it. But she was offered by the vice president of like Rogers in the 70s or something. And Rogers is like AT&T.
Oh, okay. Wow.
They're like, one of the big media conglomerates. She was offered to host a late night show in Toronto. Mom, I can't believe I'm telling this story, but
that's great.
They told her that if she did it, that she would have a really hard time balancing life with family. And so my mom made a decision. I don't want to do that. Yeah. I want to focus on my family, and gave up a professional career.
Yeah.
To raise a couple of children. And God bless her, because she did a great job doing that.
Yeah.
My siblings are great. But why I say this is, here I am. I studied broadcast print journalism, and now somehow professionally I'm running a podcast.
Yes.
Who would have thought that would have been an opportunity when you look at it? Like, the general media was like, you had print, radio, and TV.
Yep.
YouTube changed a lot of things, and podcast changed a lot of things.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about the entry into the field, or even before that. And I don't know this. At school, did you have co-op terms when you were in university?
Like, you mean where you're working?
Yeah.
Oh, like they do? No, not in undergrad or grad school for us. They don't. It's not. There are some American universities that are structured in that way,
Okay.
but not where we went to school.
Okay.
No.
So what did it look like? So you finished school, you had some incredible experiences through school, connections you made. And how did you determine where you wanted to go, what you wanted to practice? Or was it just, kind of whoever would accept me and I gave them my resume?
Well, it's interesting. The summer I graduated from grad school was 1987. It was not a great time to get a job. I had a problem getting work a little bit for a few months. I wanted to be in New York City. But I did get a job, a really great job working for Deborah Berke. I worked for her for a year. At the time, there were only 3 of us in the office, including myself, and we would have a summer intern as well.
And what was your role? What did you do?
I was working on the design and construction drawings for a single family house that we were doing in Indianapolis. It was actually for an architect who had become a developer. And so it was really great training for me because I got exposed to a project that wasn't hugely fast paced. I was able to work, very diligently on each part of it. By today's standards, it would be a massive luxury of time to just say.
It's different.
And I also interacted a lot with the client because he would have a lot of questions and want to understand, the kinds of decisions we were making. So it was an early way of getting familiar with sort of communicating what you're doing, listening to what the person's saying that you're talking to, and developing the design out of that feedback.
And you were also working on Lycra, I assume.
Lycra?
Oh, vellum.
Oh.
Or a mylar.
Oh, yes.
By hand.
I don't know why I said Lycra.
Lycra sounds exciting, though.
Yes. We were wearing athletic.
I just make up a word?
Yeah. Yes, we were working on
You made
mylar. Yes, mylar. So the
Lycra.
I think Adam was working in Lycra.
Well,
on
what's
his
funny
mylar.
is when I did my thesis drawings at Princeton, they were all pencil on Bristol. And that was really
even more painful.
That was, and I was really into depicting all of the kind of shadow and play of light and whatnot. And so that was great. But then in my first 2 offices, we didn't use computers at all. So It was Mylar. After I worked for Deborah, I worked for almost 4 years for Steven Holl. So, and again, I started there on a residential project that didn't end up getting built. And then I worked on a variety of projects while I was there.
I was going to say, which is important. Early in your career, it's important to be able to work on something that doesn't get built.
Yes.
To be used to the concept of designing something and being used to the fact that it's not going to get built.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Rejection.
Yes, rejection.
Yeah.
Totally.
All part of the process.
So Steven's office was great because we were only about plus or minus 10 people for the most of the time that I was there. Mm-hmm. And that's where I had actually met Steven, our third partner, when at Princeton. He was an undergraduate student and I was a graduate student. Steven had a job at Steven Holl's office and he got my foot in the door there. It took a couple of interviews because their process was very played out over a few months. But then when I got a job there, I was there for just about 4 years. And the project that I probably worked on the most was a private residence in Dallas called the Stretto House, which was built for a couple there who were art collectors on a really beautiful site in a residential neighborhood of Dallas. And aspects of that project then found their way into his St. Ignatius Chapel building, which has the kind of curving roofs and tilt-up concrete, and some of his other projects. But then I worked on a number of other things and got to do a lot of administrative work, contract negotiations, insurance policies. Yes, there were a variety of things that
highlights of his early career.
Yeah, exactly.
But good
great training.
In fairness, like that's stuff that most people that are getting out of school and going to professional career never get a chance to touch.
Correct.
Yes, that's right.
Correct.
So that gives you a really strong foundation.
Yep.
Yes.
And communicating with clients a lot. So also about things that were not always easy, like financial things and things like that.
Which says a lot about Steven to be able to hand off that kind of responsibility and make you accountable to what you're doing.
Yes.
Like that is most architects don't necessarily always want to hand off that type of responsibility.
Right. Exactly.
No, he probably saw my resume and said, well, he's been an architect since he was 5 years old. I think I'm in good hands here.
Yeah, exactly.
But No, we were fortunate, and Stephen has a similar story of just he was equally involved in a lot of the office management and administrative aspects of the work, as well as getting to go to job sites, travel with Steven Holl, to interviews for projects, to presentations, things like that. So things that we think are important in our firm have always thought, which is the mentoring and training, is something that, early on, I just learned firsthand, the value of that. And it depends on, it can always be calibrated to each person's interests and capabilities, but there's no right way to do it. But basically making those opportunities available to people, I think is important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What a foundation.
Yeah.
Pretty fantastic.
Yep. And then after I left there, I taught for 2 years. So University of Michigan has an amazing series of teaching fellowships.
Fellows, yeah.
So I was pretty burned out after almost 4 years because of very intense work. And I also wanted to just pull back and reflect upon, what my interests were and where to go next. Mm-hmm. So I had what was called the Sanders Teaching Fellowship at University of Michigan. I was there for a year, and then I got a teaching appointment at University of Virginia, where I had gone to undergraduate school. I taught there for a year. We started our office while I was in Virginia, Stephen and I, and
Adam.
And I moved back to New York because we got just enough work to sort of facilitate, being able to give up my day job teaching.
Can we go there next so that we can came up to the timeline?
Please.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Because that's one of the core elements of like what I like to really dive into.
Absolutely. Happy to.
Yes.
Go ahead, Cam.
So college, I went straight. So I did not have a BArch. I had a Bachelor of Arts in Architecture coming out of Columbia. And my cohort, all my classmates, we all went straight to grad school. Because similarly in 94, when I got out of college, the economy was
you were just
terrible
out of a recession.
Yeah, and exactly.
There's always something in architecture.
Yeah, there's always a recession. So we all went straight to school, and we also loved doing what we were doing. So I went to Princeton for grad school, and was there for 3 years, and then finished. And my boyfriend at the time, who is now my husband, and who is also an architect, and who also has his own firm here in the city, he and I renovated the apartment we moved into for the summer. And our friend paid us to do it because it was his family owns the building.
Oh, I was going to say, how did you get to rent?
It was kind of like, we were like, oh, maybe we should move into one of, his buildings. And he said, oh, it was like a walk up in the West Village, great 10th Street, great neighborhood. And he said, oh, well, I can pay you to do the work and make it what you want it to be. And so we renovated this little dumbbell, apartment, small walk-up apartment. And that was what I did first for the summer. And then as we were finishing that up, I was like, I got to get a job. So I applied to all these places, and through faculty, and I had interned at different great firms as a student in the summers. Yeah. And wait,
hold on.
Yeah.
What did you get to work on when you were interning? What were some of the roles that you had through interning?
Oh, those would have been everything from when I was a student, everything from international competitions to single family residential to small scale kind of cultural projects at a range of different offices, all kind of no larger kind of big corporate firms, all kind of smaller or medium-sized New York City firms. So I worked for Scott and Karen, I worked for Marble Fairbanks for some time. I worked for Joe Moore, who was another faculty member who has a practice in Greenwich. I worked for him. I worked for, at the time, BKSK, or it was just BKS at that time, and then it became BKSK. I worked for them for a summer. So I worked for Joel Sanders. So lots of people doing work that's not dissimilar from the work that we do now. And that was actually the kind of practice that I wanted to target, a certain scale and size office, New York City, because I had a lot of angst about like going to Princeton from New York, like because I really love being in New York. And then also people who were teaching, and so teaching in practice, but not people who were solely teaching. So I was really interested in getting out of school and teaching, but practicing and building and getting licensed. I wanted to make sure I like had that experience. Like I really wanted to like realize the work. And so I was specifically working in places that were like that too, I guess. So, and I get to the end of that summer, we renovate our apartment, like we move in, and I am interviewing different places, reaching out to faculty, and I had an offer that was accepted at a great firm that shall go unnamed, that is still around and we're still friends with. And they said, okay, well, we're not ready for you to start, but we'll like it in like a few weeks, we'll be ready for you to start because the project is going to get going. I was like, okay, that's great. And then my now husband has said, oh, you should check out these guys like Architecture Research Office. You should like check out Adam and Steven. It's a young firm. They seem like really like cool people. I think you just won like the Young Architects or like
that's correct.
award through the Architectural League. So my husband, who's like a few years older than me, but you know, like is in between, and also went to Princeton. He's like, "Will you check out these guys?" Like, and so I had applied to you also, and then I came in for an interview, and Stephen and Adam said, "Okay." And I remember this because Will was just very like born, like
Our
your
son.
son, yeah, was just like a toddler, and they were like, and I knew MiniCAD because I had learned that at a previous office. So at this point, we're a Mac office, and people are doing MiniCAD, which became Vectorworks. So like, I also, when I was in school, it was all hand drawing still.
Yeah.
And there was just this sort of emergence of digital work, like towards the end of my graduate. So like my thesis was also hand drawing, but I had some renderings like as a basis. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But so
it's not, I mean,
it's it's a transition.
But it's, I also think it's important because like there'll be students out there, young intern architects, designers, technologists, Strauss people out there that are listening to this, even, you know, potentially some clients, just to understand the adaptability that has to happen within this profession.
Oh yeah, there's been a radical transformation since the
and
early
that there's
90s.
so many softwares that exist that came from this whole other division of medium.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's a huge transfer. Yeah, like so, like you know,
and it's changing again now with with AI. So
exactly, it's just this complete like the technology piece and the development piece is a constant sort of like. Talk about education thing that we keep like kind of, you know, just trying to stay ahead of. So in that period of like no email, right?
Yeah.
Like this was when there was no email in the office. Like the first email we had in the office after I was there for a while was like inter-office email. Like, so it was in that era of like everything being fax and phone.
Yeah, ARO at
like,
hotmail.com.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. It's like exactly.
We had an AOL dial.
Oh my gosh. Exactly. So so I knew MiniCAD, like not brilliantly, but I had been using it in another office already. And Adam and Steven said, "Oh, well, we know you took another job, but why don't you come in? You could work for like 2 weeks before you start your other job because we have this deadline and we need the help."
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like that sounds great. I'll do that. And so I came into the office and worked for 2 weeks. And at the end of that, you were like, you know, we'd love to offer you a permanent position if you want to stay. And I said, well, I know I already made this commitment. So I called the other office and I said, oh, you know, I'm checking in. Are we, you know, you ready to have me start? And they were like, well, actually, we need to wait a couple more weeks because the project still hasn't started. And I was like, okay. I said, you know what? I said, like, that's too bad. Like, but I think I'm going to take this other job because I've been offered another job that's like already happening. And so that was like, so my joke about this is always that I was like the temporary 2-week hire that turned into the third partner because I never left, which wasn't exactly, you know, in my little vision as the person who discovered architecture as a student. I was like, I want to practice. I want to get my license. I want to have my own firm. I want to teach. And all those things have happened, but not exactly in the way that I had imagined because I thought I would found an office. And instead I stayed in an amazing office that I felt like made sense for me to stay in because I could do everything.
How many people were here
At
when
the time.
So when I started, because we had a couple of those projects happening, single family residential in the city and out of the city, we were about, I think actually like 10 to 12 when I started.
Right. Yeah.
We were on Varick Street, which is where we were south of Houston for decades. The smallest we ever got in the office when I was there was 6 people, including me. There was a point where we got tight. Yeah. And I remember that because I was the only woman at that time. I was not the only woman you already had women in the office when I got hired, but I was the only woman at that one moment when we got really small. And then we've never been that small again. But that kind of there was a whole period where we were probably in that 12 to 15.
Yes.
So can I ask the question? So what year was the practice founded?
1993.
In 93. And what year?
I started in 97.
Okay.
So they had been in business for 4 years working on largely single family and some other retail, some other projects in the city and out of the city. And it was great. And I kind of there was a moment in my career where I, had been in the office, probably I became an associate in the office. We were growing a little bit. You guys were structuring in a way that distributed, leadership and I think there was a moment where I was feeling really, and I started teaching. So I started working in the office in 97. And then I started my first studio. I started teaching in 2001 and taught, every semester, springs for over a decade, consistently. And then I've taught other places. So that was really important to me. And Adam and Stephen were supportive of that, striking that balance. But
to be honest, what I love about all of this, and I use that word strongly, is that you both had these visions potentially that came to you at different stages of life,
right? That
you've been able to harness and fulfill.
Yeah.
And I have recently been referencing this concept more and more frequently, but someone gave my wife and I advice when we got married to take a moment during our wedding and go to the corner and watch everyone celebrating.
That's nice.
Oh yeah.
That's
beautiful.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I have a very distinct memory of that moment and that night standing together and spending the whole night together. And you didn't separate, you had the same experience on the night of the wedding. And I say this because when you reach a certain stage of career, sometimes it's hard to remember certain pivotal points and take a step back and look at it.
That's great. Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
And I think it's pretty special that you've both been able to establish those goals and hit them and see it work and develop an office space like this.
Yeah.
Which I will describe as a beautiful space. I took a picture getting off the elevator of the door.
Oh yeah, it's great.
And how distinct and just subtle it is in the hallway that you have arrived at what I anticipated you would have wanted to arrive to.
Yes. No, we're really pleased with that.
But I often feel lucky, and it's a lot of hard work.
It's a lot of hard work
and a lot of care, and a lot of time. But it's fantastic, and I think that the opportunity and all the possibility and all the kind of stewarding of what we want to be doing, how we want to be working, and actually having those conversations about what that looks like is really kind of fundamentally important. But so I became Adam and Stephen's third partner, and I guess we were saying I finished school in 97, started here in 97 after the summer, and we started talking about my being. I approached them about
2010s-ish.
It's 2008 because what happened is then the economy tanked again. And 2008 was a shit show, right? And so my favorite word this week, actually, sorry. And and then we were let's just pause that idea and make sure we can stay in business and that everything is okay. And then I think I became a partner then officially, it all happened in 2010 or 2011, there. So it took a little bit to just get through that moment, which totally made sense. And so we're very deliberate.
Yes, I was going to use the word deliberative
in our office about and thoughtful, but certain things take time.
Methodical.
methodical.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
So we started the conversation. We wanted to all talk to people about what that might mean. And we'd figure it out. And it it takes a little bit, the metabolism is a little bit which is fine.
It's a big decision. It's an ultra race.
Yeah.
It's not 100.
That's absolutely right.
That's right. Exactly.
And that's something that I think younger practitioners or people interested in the profession, it's hard to know that when you're in the midst of it and you're starting out.
Yeah,
but
you want to just jump into something.
I probably realized that around 2000, I realized, this cadence is just a continuum, and that's what you want. You don't want to have long periods where nothing's happening. You actually want the kind of ongoing deadlines, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly. And so, but then you just have to realize that then you need to figure out ways to keep your perspective and keep yourself personally refreshed, within that.
And the deadlines are about goal setting, right? And one of the things that I think you both were doing and we continue to do is really to try to kind of like your anecdote about stepping back and looking at the room, celebrating, is we are really careful about coming together every few years and really stepping back and saying, are we doing what we want to be doing? How can we be doing it better? Where are we spending our time? Are we getting the work we want to do? Who are the clients that we really value? How do we continue to build in the trajectory that we imagine is the right trajectory for us? And I think that it's hard to find the time. You have to really work to create the space to have that conversation or those series of conversations, because otherwise we're all in the thick of it all the time, right?
So if I can offer advice from the guy that you've now known for an hour and 19 minutes.
Go for it.
that doesn't run an architecture practice in New York City, so FYI. I didn't go through all the things you've gone through. But you also, I've got to say, should not take couple years to do that analysis. That you should try to do that quarterly.
We do it much more regularly.
There is a constant conversation.
I know.
But it's more about sometimes the bigger picture,
it's hard. It's hard because you have all these deadlines. You're dealing with all the other things you have to deal with.
Absolutely.
Staff, project timelines. You've got RFPs you've got to answer to. You want to go and look into a competition somewhere.
Yes. And it's fun, but it's hard. Yeah. And sometimes it's really, not fun.
I was going to ground a little bit of what Kim's early experience in the firm with what Stephen and I thought about in setting up the firm initially, which was a place that we would focus primarily on practice. We also taught multiple times and continue to teach, but we were interested in saying, our primary commitment is going to be to the practice. Mm-hmm. And I think in some, and do it in a
pursuing nobody taught full time anywhere, pursued tenure position anywhere. Right. So it's about the work and the practice.
Yeah. And I think
teaching as a positive.
I think in a way that was unusual for the time to have people who were serious about architecture, but not having a permanent affiliation to an academic institution.
Like a single institution.
And so, but that was deliberate. And in some respects, it made it even harder because we were,
you had to win projects.
Right.
And you had to make money.
Projects.
Yeah, I was going to say, you had to win projects to pay your.
Correct.
Yes.
There was no underwriting. There's no
supplemental income.
Right. Yeah. Right. So it's all from the office.
Which is what a lot of people
have to do.
To ensure some level of stability.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And what was interesting in the early years, and I think this is true of younger practitioners today by and large, is, we were doing mostly residential work, which Kim alluded to or described. And, you're as challenging as it is, it's actually can be fairly easy to manage because the projects, if they're a certain size, and we weren't doing hugely expensive projects, but we did some that were $5 million house or something.
I do want to, when you're done saying this, I want to talk about some of those.
Yeah. So what's interesting is, you can say, let's have a team of 3 people to 4 people, and they're going to work for a year on this. Or two. And it's in some respects very straightforward to manage those projects, assuming you have a good client and you're paid regularly and the project doesn't stop. But
they have a flow that is more consistent
yeah,
than a lot of
yeah.
other kinds of work.
But we were also very mindful, even from an early stage, that that wasn't going to be our primary diet. What's challenging as a young firm is getting work in the public realm because, you know, you need a level of trust or experience or demonstrated results, even though we had achieved things at Steven Holl's office and worked there.
And it's not just the public realm. I mean, you have to like go back to like New York City in, you know, 2000 or 98 or 2001, which was horrible. Like, is that there was not as much building going on, right? It was a complete, like when I went to school, like came out of school, you didn't really imagine people building buildings in New York City. So you're also talking about this thing of like, how do you get work that's ground up work when you're in New York City practice, trying to work in New York City. And it's a completely different landscape now because there's been so, which is wonderful, so much development and so much investment. But that's part of the kind of context, which is hard to imagine when you emerge from school today, but was very much like I couldn't even fathom. Like,
no, I mean, the main public outlet for our work was temporary exhibition design. Yeah. We did a handful of temporary exhibitions
in galleries or in public
at public spaces at the Cooper Hewitt, several, and Asia Society, Museum of Moving Image. So those were early opportunities to work with curator about something that had intellectual content, had a public experiential component,
that people
tight budget actually, but because they were
generally are,
and work with graphic designers. So begin to work with other collaborators. So those were meaningful for us and a way of beginning to do public work.
You're flexing a completely different muscle in your brain.
Yeah. It's still a part of the projects that I love, you know, like we all love is getting to understand the what the client does and their mission and the kind of facts around their work and with exhibitions, it's even more, you know, so some of the projects we've done in the last, you know, couple decades that are artist related projects have a similar learning component to them, which is really interesting and fun.
So tell me about, because you alluded to it before and I told you I wanted to go back to it. You were both working at another practice and you had established and everyone, by the way, does this. So talking about anyone out there, you got to understand, you're going to moonlight in some capacity.
Yeah.
You're going to start your own practice.
Right.
Well, we weren't actually moonlighting.
Oh, well, then I take back what I just said.
Yeah. No, so I left to teach. And then Steven Holl had a slow period and Stephen Cassell was only part-time employed there. So that was the beginning of our practice, was sort of, there was a period.
So what did you do? Like, so, you came together for coffee and said, like, let's try to make a go of this?
You know, what's really funny is I don't remember the exact circumstances.
I thought there was, and I wasn't there, but I thought that then there was a particular project that that emerged that one of you, somebody had a connection and there was a need to, it was an opportunity to like work on that project. And that was maybe a little bit of the kernel.
Yes,
right?
That's true. But we didn't have enough of a project to have our own office.
Yeah.
So desk space was rented in another graphic design office. I was remote. So I was literally using the dial-up connection with MiniCAD to do drawings, you know, that sound.
So painful.
And, so the first, the first 8 or 9 months, you know, I was remote. But yes, you're right. There was a kernel of a project and then our first full-time hire, Monica Rivera, who's an amazing architect. She and her husband and partner have a practice called Lopez Rivera in Barcelona. She's also the chair of graduate architecture at Rice University now. But she was our first full-time hire circa 1994-ish. She had just graduated from RISD. She ended up going back and getting her master's at Harvard after working for us for a few years. But anyway, so that was the early times at ARO.
I want to align, because it's an audio.
Yeah.
There's no visual component to this.
Yes.
I need to align what you just described with those listening that aren't familiar with the sound.
The sound.
I'm sorry, I have to do this. This is, and I haven't vetted this yet, so God willing, it's going to be okay. But this is the sound of dial-up internet. Hopefully.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm having like a flashback
nostalgia,
moment.
Right?
Yes.
Or like post-traumatic stress.
Yes.
Like it's so like when you can't get that sound, you're doomed.
Yes.
And I only say this because like, you know, you're traveling all over the place. You don't have internet connection.
No.
You just all you see is the little circle with an X.
Painful. Yeah.
You're doing your work on Minicad.
Yes.
If someone picked up the phone while you were doing work, your internet connection's gone.
Yes.
You're listening to this right now and you haven't experienced any of this. Let me tell you, you're living in a great world.
Well, the other thing that's funny is we were an early adopter of having a cell phone in the office. This is circa 1995. We had a Motorola flip phone.
Oh, the big,
not the big one. No, it was smaller, but big by today's standards.
No, I'm talking about the back of it. It was almost like somewhat of a half a triangle.
I had that huge one.
Yes, it had a big battery. It had a supplemental battery that we got. Yeah. But I remember taking it to teach because I was teaching a studio at Yale in 1995. Taking it, you know, and we only had one phone, so someone who was leaving the office would take it with them. And I remember taking it on the train to New Haven, and like basically the service was so bad. You're like, why do I even have this thing? Like every time I call someone, it cuts off within 30 seconds, and then you dial back and like, this is a pointless exercise. Yeah. And at the same time, I think if that movie, what was the movie, Greed or whatever, with Wall Street, right? Where he has the line about greed is good or whatever. He had like a even bigger cell phone. And you just realize
they just had briefcases.
Yeah.
Like a lawyer, like my dad
phone case
carrying the battery was like briefcase.
Yes. Yeah.
And he would carry that around with him because he had clients that wouldn't need to call him and needed to be accessible.
That's right. Yeah.
Crazy.
It's wild. So, So what was the first, I would say, larger scale project that you acquired? And you felt, oh my God, like we're going to be established. We can do this.
Well, I'm trying to think. We had a handful of these larger residential projects, which were great, and those really gave us stability and interesting clients, and we're able to do really nice work for them. Some of whom we did multiple projects for over longer periods of time.
Like a couple were like lofts in the city. Yeah. There's a house out west, like big, and I would say like you're right to say they're not like they weren't huge, but they were really nice higher end residential projects, and like those would still be amazing projects for us to do today. You know?
Absolutely.
So they were great clients, great projects.
And I mean, an early project that we did that was important was we were the executive architect and collaborators with OMA on the Prada store here in New York City, which was in like 1999 to around 2001.
Wow.
The one in Soho.
On Prince Street and Broadway.
Prada epicenter.
I just walked past it.
Yeah. So Steven, our third partner, who is sitting between us.
Our imaginary friend.
I feel like we should print a picture off him.
Yeah.
he got his master's degree at Harvard, and his thesis advisor was Rem Koolhaas. So Rem knew that we had our own firm, and basically we had roughly 8 or so people, as Kim mentioned earlier, at that point in time. And so he reached out to ask if we wanted to be local architect. And given that he was obviously driving the sort of project direction, given that he had been approached by the client. But we ended up working on that project, which was quite large, and he was very open to the kind of contributions we could make. Which were a lot around just getting the things that they wanted to happen, actually to make them feasible here in New York City. Yeah, there were a lot of interesting and very technically challenging, administratively, code-wise. So that was, we were not design architect, but it was an important learning experience.
Of course.
And then
getting the opportunity to work with another practice.
Yeah.
And understand what communication can look like.
Correct.
And with multiple creatives involved in this.
Right.
There's a non-local. So how does that work? And how do we make design influence from where they are work here?
Correct. Yeah. And I have to say they were very they were good to work with, and Rem was really gracious and sort of thankful for the work contributions that we made. And
And in that context, actually, one of the conversations at that time was very much about like how to find the opportunities for other kinds of work. Adam mentioned like the exhibit design And then in the late 90s, we also did the recruiting station.
Yep.
We also did
Times
Cura.
Square.
So there was a little bit of expansion. Some of those were all very different kinds of collaborative projects.
Yep.
Really impactful and kind of formative, I think, in the office in terms of just opportunity, typology, architecture, form. But also what you're seeing there, I'm really saying in this conversation, is the sort of seeds of like very much how we operate today from the standpoint of making it a priority to consistently do work across typologies or across, in a really diverse types of work.
Yeah, we like to say we have a radical diversity of work.
Yeah, so and that was really seeded all the way back in those early years in the practice, which was about how do we expand from, single family residential is amazing and it's an amazing opportunity, but we want to do more things than that. And what are those opportunities and how do we build on them? So early, Times Square was probably our first ground up project in New York City, like the recruiting station.
So can I ask the question on that?
Yep.
Yeah.
When you were about to start construction, were you there on day one? And did you have that like heart palpitation that you like, this is now real? Like,
this is happening.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I had that just because you're in the moment and you're so busy. And
fair.
We had young kids at the time and I don't know.
And we
probably
had
a lot of other things I was thinking about.
Bigger projects that were probably been under construction in New York. They just weren't literally
ground up
out of the ground. And then we did some early, again, opportunistically, we did some early park pavilions as part of the Design Excellence Program, which existed at the time with the Department of Parks and Rec here in New York City. And those were also, it was about being opportunistic about how can we do ground up work at a scale that, and so we did those projects, which were an interesting kind of precursor to our work collaborating with landscape architects and really thinking about buildings in landscape or buildings set within a cultural landscape or sort of building on those kind of collaborative roots. So it's the scales and blossomed and the complexity has changed and the geographic positioning has changed, but it's certainly
and we didn't enter into the discussion of the firm talking about this, but Stephen and I were really mindful of having a practice that, the A, the R, and the O. We'll talk maybe later about a book about our office that was published a couple of years ago. But basically, this desire to make beautiful architecture, just loving the process and the outcome of building. So the A. The R being inquiry and research. Both philosophical direct dimension as well as just practical learning about the parameters of a project and leveraging them to develop your ideas and to refine them and do that in collaborative context. And then the office being a culture that you want to create, which can help people to thrive, on a personal level, but also ultimately to make something a place that can then facilitate making great architecture and supporting a process that we think is a great way to go about, creating buildings and spaces, things like that. So those were all aspects of what Kim described in terms of, those types of projects fit into this and helped us better understand and kind of build out what the A, the R, and the O were, even though we envisioned it, we didn't, we had to make that happen.
And how you started off the practice registering it as the architecture research office?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
That was
it from the beginning.
Yeah.
And when you were doing that, did you know that you were creating something that would be able to have succession built into it?
We actually were mindful of that.
You were.
From the standpoint of there's been this longstanding paradigm in architecture, and there's nothing wrong with it per se, of the kind of named practitioner who is the person on the door. There are a lot of negative implications that have come up in recent years with that, and just kind of
Zaha Hadid's office.
Or just Thomas DiMancio refers to it. He's a great writer about the culture of cruelty. There's a sort of top-down dimension that sometimes can happen with those practices. So we were interested in
any practice.
practice. You're absolutely right. But we were interested in a different kind of practice where, our names are not what it's about.
Yes.
It's about the outcome. It's about the people. That said, we are intimately and directly involved with every project we're working on. And we love that personal connection to the work. We're a studio atelier set up, small teams on projects. We're not some giant corporation, but even larger corporations are set up now in small teams and things. So anyway, that a desire to set up a firm that would allow for, you're calling it succession, but it's also just expanded leadership of the firm, which we have.
Well, I say succession because I know that succession planning in this field is a hard thing for some people to be able to come to terms with.
Yep.
Right? How do I hand over the asset that I've created?
Yeah, you're giving it all to me, by the way.
Right.
Okay.
I'm glad we were able to derive this now in this podcast. There it is.
But it also, I think that the naming, what I always loved about it and still do is that it's kind of true to our core ethos, and it communicates about the firm more than about the individual, and that's
what I was alluding to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is that it's hard for practices to transition from named to a new name.
Yes.
And still maintain the level of integrity within the community.
Yes.
And the knowledge base within potential clients. Oh, you went through a change.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no,
yes.
absolutely.
So I think it's pretty forward of you to have had that vision in '94, knowing that could be the case. What I also want to ask you about was, and I don't always ask this question, so you can totally tell me that you don't want to answer it. And by the way, for those listening, I preface this recording by saying, if I ever ask a question and you don't like it, you can tell me no. So with that said, how have you found over the years when you're looking at building your own answer to an RFP, how have you found the analysis in a postmortem in terms of the fee tying to the time? Mm-hmm. And I asked that question specifically, I think, with the two of you because of the way you've just described the practice being this kind of atelier, smaller team, higher focus on the output and not the layers between it. So do you feel like when you're answering to an RFP and you're going through the process of the design through construction administration, do you hit your targets, or do you feel like sometimes you need to adjust?
No, I mean, it's a constant learning process because of the diversity of work that we do. Mm-hmm. There's no set formula for how you determine your time.
Right.
We do a lot of very bespoke RFPs that are usually invited by educational institutions or cultural organizations. We work with a larger leadership group. So we have studio directors in the office and our business strategy and communications director. We definitely do postmortems. We track what the profitability of projects are. We look at the circumstances. It's baseline, as you stated very clearly. It's about your time, and is that time being compensated? Because it's a service business in that sense.
100%.
So we're mindful of that. There's no magic formula, but we do a lot of analysis, a lot of careful collaborative work to put these things together. Qualifications to sort of be like, this is based upon this schedule assumptions and things. And depending upon the project, you can mitigate that risk through an intelligent client who is aware that if the schedule or the scope changes and your contract's written in such a way, you can get more compensation if needed. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it's also, I mean, I think that the hardest part within, this is generally, I guess, any industry, as I'm about to state it for this industry specifically, is that you want to win the project. So you have to be, your proposal has to be within line of what you would expect to be competitive, but also how you position your service and what you bring to it is really what I think in most scenarios you hope is going to be the standalone objective of the determination of whether or not you win it.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Yep. No, it's absolutely true. And one of the great things is, which speaks to, I think, the way in which we communicate the nature of our work and are finding often and frequently like-minded clients is we do a lot of repeat work for the same clients where they understand that we have value to the service that we provide. And so we do ongoing work and or new projects for the same clients fairly often, which I think is not unusual in architecture. A lot of architects do that. But so that's one measure of, I think, the success that our clients see in our process. But I think fundamentally, with respect to getting compensated for what work you do, it's also about communication. It's about being in front of an expectation setting with the client so that they're aware of, oh, these things changed, or this isn't something that was requested initially, or this was out of our control. And again, it's tied into legal things and contracts, but usually you want to make it clear enough so that it's kind of common sense, but
yeah, that's a sort of management component at the outset. You're building off of all the data and all the thought that goes into, how many people what's our labor? How many people do we need? How are we going to staff the project? Is it going to go on hold or not? How can we be efficient within our staffing while still creating the time and space to do the design work we want to do? So it's very complex, like Adam was saying, complex.
You have to be very sophisticated to be able to have those types of conversations because is someone going to go on mat leave?
Right.
Has someone scheduled vacation time that's the project manager on this?
Right.
Absolutely.
Are we going to have to bring someone else in to be able to train them? These are conversations that I never really get into with a lot of people.
They have
this is all part and parcel.
You have to plan all of that.
Yeah, and we work, again, we meet weekly about this and we with the leadership team in the office and so
and there's the maybe like a theme there lying within your question, which I think is also one of the things that is not, we're not wearing this on our sleeve, but something that we work constantly at is the sort of financial stability of the office, right? How do you create a studio? How do you grow it? Our sites aren't on like massive growth, but how do you keep the size of the office that is going to work well for the kind of projects that you want to be achieving?
Yeah.
And that constant stewardship takes real effort and planning and really imagining the long view sometimes when we're in these shorter view moments of, kind of like the pursuit and the excitement around the pursuit. So there are projects, and when we talk about diversity of work, it might be typology, location, scale, budget.
Yep.
And so there are projects that we're very passionate about that are not large, high budget projects. And there are other projects we're really passionate about that are, that have a little bit more room, right? In terms of like their kind of base construct. And so you're constantly also, you have to do a little bit of blending to create that opportunity. Right.
This is a terrible reference.
Yeah.
But my wife is just rewatching Entourage.
Yeah.
Season 2. And it's when Ari is pitching on the idea of doing Aquaman versus Median.
Yeah, great.
Right?
Oh my gosh.
The passion project versus the blockbuster.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's hard to be able to balance that.
Yeah.
So with that said, you talk about the idea of understanding the team and understanding the financial dynamics of it. What did it look like when you started? You said Kim, when you joined, you were around 10 to 12 people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what has been the largest size of the team that you've had? And what has been what you would, I guess, or we would call now, right size of team for number of projects? And do you have a definitive concept for the business of how many projects you can run to be able to stay within the parameters that you feel comfortable?
Yeah.
As managing.
I'd say the biggest we've been is about 40.
40.
Okay.
We are just about 30 now.
Yeah.
Was 40 scary?
No, it wasn't scary. It was, it's all about having the leadership and organizational structure so that you feel as if the teams of people are working well and productively. I wouldn't say it was scary.
No.
It was responding to just the work that we had at the time.
So how did you decide when you needed to bring in someone that would help manage operations?
I mean, we didn't bring in anyone. We grew that from within.
Okay.
So
we're a very homegrown kind of environment.
So our
But not
studio
entirely.
director,
Yeah.
Megumi Tamanaha, who's been in the firm for well over 20 years.
Probably since
almost-
like 99.
Almost 25 or
99 or
more. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she is the studio director. She's involved in hiring and all aspects of sort of operations and management of the office.
And she's an architect, and she
we've-
designs, and she still is involved in projects. But yeah,
And we had a financial business manager, now called like a financial director. We had one of those since the late 90s. So I mean, right around 2000.
yeah. No, when I started in the office, we had,
And so we've had that enough work to where you needed someone who could do just the administrative billing and things. That role has never really done client-related contracts and things, but they did all our vendor stuff and involved in that. But so I think the size of the office, we don't have a sweet spot or target that we're searching for. Our current space can accommodate up to around 45 max,
I think.
but we're architecture is by nature,
A heartbeat.
temporal, dynamic
Has to be
environment.
responsive.
The challenge is, and what we're super mindful of this is just when we hire, we try to be as thoughtful as we can about, wanting to maintain continuity and make sure people have a stable job. It's not always possible. That's one of the hardest things about running an office. Is it's not always possible to have that. It's not driven by ourselves. It's about the kind of work that we can get, and it's a super competitive environment. So the kinds of projects we're going for are very can be quite complicated. Once in a while, you get a call from a client and you just get the job. I would say that's every few years.
I was going to say, how long? Yeah,
Very rare.
And that's wonderful when that happens, but
have you ever had a client where you've designed something for them on any form of commercial, public, civic scale? Someone was on a board or it was private industry and you ended up getting their private residence.
Yes. We've done that. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that's always fun. So those kinds of that reduces the pursuit length and significantly. But
it also validates what you've accomplished on the side.
Right. Exactly. And again, those relationships are really important and meaningful because they're personal, right? And they also have a different kind of like just fidelity maybe because you have built that relationship over time. But just to build on what Adam was saying, the 40 wasn't scary. It felt good for the work at the time. I think like in the past, say 15 years-ish, maybe, I feel like that kind of 25 to 35 has been a really great size for the projects for the kind of projects scale and range and complexity that we've been working on. And we're positioned to grow opportunistically. Like Adam said, we don't have some goal of being like, we would like to be the 60, whatever size, firm. But the structure is there to allow us to kind of expand and contract as we need to. Mm-hmm. And we want to be positioned to engage in the work that we're interested in doing when the opportunity arises. And so that's where the growth it can happen. And incrementally from, back in the day, we have grown pretty consistently over time and stabilized for a long time at a size and then continue to grow. So we haven't been under 20 in like
many years.
A long time.
Yeah.
But we, and we were over 30 for a long time. So hovering in 30 is really great. Could we be 40 again? Yes, great, no problem. But it's like it's a constant shuffle. And our studio director, Megumi Tamanaha, is magician because she also she and the kind of directors in the team really try to carefully choreograph that dynamic staffing scenario, which is like all over the map, like with projects starting and stopping or something going into like a quieter phase and you're still meeting all the time, but like you don't need all the designers on it or all the same architects. So it's just it's so complicated.
And is much of the work, this will be the last question about the practice, and then I'll go back to the two of you, but is much of the work local to the U.S.?
Yes.
Yes.
It is.
Domestic.
By and large.
With some exceptions, with a couple of exceptions over the years, but but essentially like, U.S.
All around
projects
the United
across the
States.
country.
Yes. Yeah.
Across the country.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening, worth noting, if you're brand new to this, head over to the Instagram account, Issue for Construction Pod, and then you'll be able to see some of the featured projects
It's great.
that both want to have on here. In addition to that, if you can, just like find the spot where you can give 5 stars, because then it just helps with some exposure. That aside, so shameless plug. I want to say it before it ended.
Yes. Perfect.
Okay, so a couple last things that I want to ask you. You're at a stage now where the business is, in many ways, without it being totally self-sustaining, where you can go and you can flex other muscles in your brain. So you talked about using building blocks when you were young. You talked about the idea of going crabbing. So nowadays, I know that's the reference that I chose.
I love it.
There were so many other things that you
great.
did, but I went there.
No. The crabbing is-
What are the things that you find allow you to divert your attention towards other hobbies now? And what is family life like for you now?
Sure. Well, those are exciting things.
Oh.
I'll do a shameless plug because partly if people are interested in learning more about what we've talked about with just the nature of our work, the kind of principles that drive it, and the history of our firm, the book architecture.research.office is going to be a great resource.
So I'll just say this to interrupt you too at the same time. If you head to the liner notes for the show, you'll be able to click on websites for all the associated.
Oh, cool.
That's great.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
The website for the practice, website for any publications, anything like that. It'll all be in the liner notes.
Cool.
That'll be the deep dive for the really avid listener.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think it goes into more detail about our intentionality with the firm, and so I think it's could be interesting for people to look at. So my wife and I built a house that I designed outside of New York City about 25 years ago, a little over. And so I love doing work outside in landscape and gardening. So that's one of my outlets when I'm not doing, design stuff.
What's one of the hardest plants or trees that you currently manicure?
Well, we plant all native perennials and shrubs and trees, but the challenge is always keeping the deer away.
Yeah.
So planting those types of plants that the deer don't prefer.
Yeah. Or finding the meal.
Yeah. Exactly.
They don't like to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a constant process, and I find I just get lost in thought and don't think about architecture when I'm doing it, when I'm eradicating the latest invasive weed. But but my life, my wife is an art historian by training. So we have 2 kids who are adults now, and I just became a grandparent in December for the first time, which is super exciting. Yep.
Congratulations.
So our son and daughter-in-law had a baby girl, which is wonderful. So
congratulations to the 2 of you.
Thank you. Yeah. So, and I mean, a lot of what we talk about with the firm culture and we're passionate about making architecture that can, make the world a better place. That's why we do this. But we also want to have lives and that are not directly connected to that at every step. And so, and I think what's been exciting to me in terms of our kids becoming young adults is seeing both of their parents passionate about what they do at the time, but also that we've made significant amount of time and value our family life together. And then you just see it in different ways. Our son's a mechanical engineer. He works for Garmin, which is kind of cool. And our daughter's a public school teacher here in New York City. They're not architects, but you see that some of the values that we have find their way into their world, which is great. So those are the things that, I'm doing now. Oh, and then a kind of neat project that I worked on was during the pandemic was a little 3-legged stool. That was kind of my own little, it's here. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. You'll see.
Little wood.
But basically it was a thing I did during the pandemic when we were all looking at Zoom for hours on end. Yeah. I just wanted to get down in my basement because we were upstate at the time and just make something. Yeah. So prototyping that and then having that made. So that was a fun thing. But in a way, what I love about small scale object and furniture design is, you can iterate and just work directly with the material and it's just a very satisfying process. So it takes me back in a way to my block playing and model railroading days, but that I find is very satisfying to do.
Yeah.
So,
Adam has a very positive work ethic, which is a creative outlet work ethic, which is great. I'm really in the thick of it still in my life. I feel like I have a daughter who's in college, and my son is a junior in high school. He just turned 17. I missed his birthday because I was teaching. It was on my final review. That
doesn't mean she doesn't love you.
No,
right?
I know. He's still very important.
Exactly.
So he's launching in a year. This time next year, he'll be graduating from high school and off to college also. So I'm facing the crosshairs of empty nesting, in the near future, which will be interesting.
I'll give you some advice. Yeah, I don't really have any, but
I have a hard time. I've told people this sometimes. I have a hard time not occupying myself. So when I'm not in the office and not teaching or board work or doing other things that are related to this great place that we live in, and not at a soccer game because I am a very intense soccer mom. I like to cook because cooking is meditative and productive, and that's really very positive for me. So I'll cook or bake a lot at home, and that's kind of my happy place. Mm-hmm. And then we also have property out of the city, but is in an earlier kind of gestational phase, and we bought property upstate with some good friends and have subdivided it and are building not a commune, but a little world away from
Amazing.
Here. That is, we're just starting a road project in the next week, but we have our subdivision approved, but we're conserving land. So there's a bunch of acreage, and we have an orchard, and we've been planting the garden. So we're just about to have our planting weekend again. And that's been a really fun sort of place to go and experiment with different things and get away. But my teenage son, of course, would much rather just stay in the city.
Yeah, that's fair. That's okay. But he's going to appreciate that when he gets a little bit older.
It's great.
And that's fine.
Yes.
Different stages of life. I was so this week, there's a feature on a practice out of Calgary, Alberta. And one of the two partners of that practice was talking about the idea of communes.
Yes.
Where he learned and experienced it in Africa.
Yeah.
In Gambia.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the value that it creates for this sense of community with the people that you're closest with.
Exactly.
And to be able to share in what that becomes over time.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's pretty special when you're doing that.
Yeah, it's pretty great. They're it's our 5 families. If the 4 other families are very close, they're our New York City family. And all the kids have grown up together. And now we have this land that we're conserving and sharing ownership of, and we have some structures in the garden and the orchard and stuff that we're sharing. But eventually, it might take a long time. We haven't even designed, haven't even built a model of our piece of the property where we will all hopefully at some point have also an actual house, not a, off the grid.
Yeah, whatever. You'll get there.
But it's great. It's a very fun experiment.
Projects.
It's a project.
Yeah, you got to have that.
Exactly.
It's a building project, which is great.
No, totally.
I have to honestly thank the two of you for taking so much time to do this today and going beyond time.
You're welcome.
Fantastic.
It has been so much fun. I'm so thankful that we were able to do it. I have learned so much from the two of you.
Oh, enjoyed this.
And it's been a pleasure. So thank you for inviting me to your office and having me here and sharing your life and your work with those that have listened. And me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. It's
Absolute
wonderful.
Pleasure. Yeah.
Wonderful to take the time to chat. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you.